Welcome to Forbes Newsroom. My name is Cat Oriel. Today I'm joined with Miss Andrea Hailey, the CEO of Voteorg. Andrea, the last time we spoke, it was before the midterm elections. It's now about a week past Election Day. We know almost all the results. It's been called that the Democrats will maintain control of the Senate, and most likely we're leaning toward a GOP House majority. What data have you seen around election turnout, and how do you think voter turnout has contributed to the outcomes we've seen so far?
I mean, it was a really exciting election. I think the good news here is that we saw very high turnout for a midterm election. We saw, near 2018 levels. You have to remember that in 2018, that was the largest turnout in a midterm that we had in our country since 1914. So to be just a couple percentage points off of that means that we had a really epic midterm election cycle with a lot of people participating and having their voice heard all over the country. In particular, we saw high numbers of women and young people turn out to vote, and that's an exciting thing for our democracy.
Did you meet your company's expectations? Was it below your expectations? How did the numbers stack up?
It was, we met expectations. I think at Vote.org, we really kind of hunkered down and we invested deeply in young people. And that's really the big thing. It's that people want to vote and they want to have their voice heard, but you have to invest and you have to go ask people for their vote and give them the information that they need to participate. So at Vote.org, we did that in states like Michigan and in Wisconsin and Arizona and Pennsylvania. And we saw results from that. We saw millions of young people all across this country participate and really shape the electorate, which is exciting. I think if you go millennial on down, that's now the largest voting bloc in America. And the question is always, will people show up? But I think if what we proved out this year is that if you deeply invest, people will show up time and time again. We've now seen, we saw 2018 have large youth voting. We saw 2020 have an 11% spike in youth voting. And now here we are in 2022 with really high levels of youth voting. I think it's almost time now that the narrative in general in our country shifts to say, you know what, the next generation is going to vote, they're showing up, and they're going to participate.
How were you able to get such high engagement in a non-presidential election year? Midterms tend to have lower turnout. So what exactly did your organization do to make sure that people not only registered to vote, but actually showed up and had confidence that their vote was going to be counted?
I think we really provide people with the tools and resources they need. So if you go to vote.org, in every state, we have all of the rules you need to participate. We proactively reached out to voters. We did things like we had micro influencer engagement. So people who had large followings in their state, but also in schools, people who had large followings in different schools that we worked with. We had them posting voting information. It's one thing when I say, hey, get out there and go vote. It's a whole nother thing when peers and people that you look up to or interact with every single day are giving that kind of information and saying it's time for all of us to go participate and time to vote. So part of it's just momentum begets momentum. Part of it's really celebrating the joy of having our voices heard, celebrating the joy of having access to the ballot box, and making sure those messages are coming from, trusted voices and people who everyone is already paying attention to and already wants to, hear from. I think the other thing that we did is we made sure that we, did a ton of digital engagement. We had, we've had over 14 million people sign up for our text message alerts to let people know when the election's happening. We put ads up on streaming services saying, hey, early voting's happening right now. Here's how you can participate. Or the day before the election saying, you've got one more day, you need to go to the polls. Let's get out there and go. I think it's a lot of it is just raising awareness around what's happening in each state, how people can participate in each state, and giving people the tools they need to become their own vote captains. So the other thing that we really stressed was, hey, once you have all the information you need, can you go ahead and pledge to us that you're going to go to 3 other people and make sure they have what they need to participate, and making people realize that we're all influencers. And so the way to do, that is like influence what's happening on your street or with your cousins or with your aunties or uncles, or, to really make sure that everybody was out there and staying engaged. And once we got, people to come back into the election cycle, that they reached out to other people they knew to realize the importance of elections. I think on the other hand, the other thing that's happening is a lot of especially among younger people, is that so many of the issues they care about, whether it's student debt or climate or reproductive rights. So many of the big issues of the day were also highly motivating organically for people. So I think that drew in more excitement, more engagement. And what we've noticed since 2020, quite frankly, is that more people are just interested in the process and interested in thinking like, okay, well, who decides this, X, Y, and Z budget in my local community? Who are the people who really make decisions over our day-to-day lives? So I think more Americans are going deep to think about civic engagement and civic education than we've ever seen before. So it's also really exciting.
Do you believe that those issues, everything going on in the current state of the United States, are what motivated young people to come out to the polls?
I do think so. Yes. I think young people were motivated by issues, and then I think that they were able to find and access resources that help them to have their voice heard. So I do think people deeply cared about what's going on, and they're seeing more and more in their feeds about what's happening, across the country. They're hearing more and more from trusted messengers about what's important to them. And so I think there's been more of a sharing of ideas and a sharing of issues than we've seen, historically in the past. I do think that's happening. And then I think the difference is now there are organizations like Vote.org that will invest deeply also in helping people to know, okay, well, now that you care, now that you are talking about these things, you got to do more than just stay online and go talk back and forth with your friends about it. Here's how you take action and have your voice heard.
Was there anything that you learned from the election that you plan to implement in 2024? Any ways that you can grow as an organization?
Absolutely. You can that's an excellent question. There are always so many ways to grow. And the thing with, the civic engagement environment is that it's always changing. It's always shifting. There are all sorts of new ways of reaching people. I think the biggest thing that we learn is that we have to communicate how fun this can all be, how fun having access to the ballot box can be, how you can join, have parties at the polls and join together with your friends and family and go out together. We learned a lot about making sure that social media strategies and micro-influencer strategies directly translate into registration. So we had so many people this year that we were able to give specialized links to, and then we could track back the registrations that they were able to motivate. I think people really like knowing that when they put something, I think the number one question we get from a social media standpoint is, okay, if I do post something, does it have any effect? Does it really make a difference? And so we can see when those actions actually happen on the site, and the fact that people with large followings really do and can make a difference. So that was really exciting. I think we'll expand our campus engagement programs in the future. And really want to make sure that we're, reaching people where we are. We're going to think more about the integrations between technology and civics. So we had partnerships this year with, if you looked up on Pinterest, democracy, you would come across Vote.org information about how to use our tools and register to vote. If you, we had a partnership with Reddit. In the past, we've had partnerships with Discord. We want to make sure we're in those places where people already live, and we'll think a lot more about those sorts of integrations so that it becomes very easy for people to have their voice heard. We have a partnership with College Board. So, where's everybody logging in every day? And where can we provide nonpartisan, really trusted information that people can use to access their own voice? I think the other thing is, most people know who they want to vote for. Most people know who shares the values and beliefs that they do, but a lot of people don't have nonpartisan information that they need. So we see our job, and we'll continue to see our job in the future as, providing that holding container of just trusted nonpartisan information so you can go out and have your voice heard. We're not going to, I think that a lot of ways, that kind of information is more powerful than trying to persuade people back and forth at the end of an election cycle about what they should do. I don't think the younger generation wants to be told what they should or shouldn't do. I think they just want the information so they can then take the actions they want to see happen in the world. And we'll be here to provide that.
Was there a particular influencer that was really fun to work with?
We love working with Taylor Swift's team at Vote.org. That's very, very great. We also this year worked with a lot of native influencers. And I know that team really enjoyed working there. I think that some of the HBCU influencers that we worked with too on campuses, it's fun to see how people take the message and take the tools and then create their own creative around it. And then our Plan Your Vote initiative has, if you go to, the Plan Your Vote Instagram, you can see it has a whole bunch of like 100 different artists that have participated, including my favorite artist, which is Cat Oriel's. So seeing all of these different artists take their own artwork and then put Plan Your Vote over it and come up with creative ways of getting that message out there that really resonate with people. I think those are some of our favorites right off the bat. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say, Carrie Washington also worked with Vote.org this year, and she's amazing. And her team was really, really fantastic to work with, and also organized other people to get out there and to help everybody register to vote as well. So I think those are some of the highlights.
Going back to Taylor Swift for a second, did you get to meet her?
I haven't met Taylor Swift. Taylor, if you're out there watching, I would love to meet you. But haven't gotten to meet Taylor Swift, but have had great interactions with her team. And we're really happy that they continue to put up information. This year, they put up information around early voting, registering to vote, and then getting out to vote. So really active in civics. And then Alimi Ballard, I mean, he was fantastic. He left a voice note that said, get out there, stay charged up, stay excited. And man, did that work at the end of the election cycle. People forget that when you're doing this work, it's day in, day out, and so many hours. And so really having people cheering you forward makes all the difference in the world, gives you energy to keep going. So that was fantastic. But yeah, Taylor Swift posted the night before her album came out. So we were really honored that she did that, and used kind of the attention coming to the album to also say to all of her fans, hey, there's an election coming up, go participate. Early voting has already started. So we're big fans.
And so we are headed toward another election very soon, the runoff in the Georgia Senate in December. And so the last time this happened, activists and operatives from around the country definitely flocked to the state, flooded it with money, media attention. Do you see this happening again in this upcoming race?
Yes. I think, one of the things, the key differences this year, though, is it's all happening on a condensed timeline for the people in Georgia. Before, when we had the runoff election, it was, the election date was in January. Now the election date is December 6th. So, that's a challenge. And the state legislature passed a law and they changed the registration deadline. So this year you had to have already registered for the runoff before the general election happened, which doesn't quite make sense because you didn't even know if there was going to be a runoff or not. So you have to already be registered to participate in this election. Last cycle, we were able to do a lot around, telling people who were just turning 18 that they could still register and participate. But I do think this is a really important election for the people in Georgia. I think we have to recenter to remember that no matter who's, there's all this conversation at the national level about control of, the Senate and this and that, but this election isn't about a national picture. This is about a local picture of who Georgians want representing them and who they want their voice to be in Washington. So there's so many, people who deserve to have representation and access this election cycle so that they can, be represented by somebody who shares their value set. I'm excited. I do think people will, that the condensed timeline may actually, people may stay focused on this election. I do think the cameras and the attention will all be on Georgia. I do think, influencers who are from Georgia really care deeply about the state and about the direction of the state. And we've seen I think we've seen at Vote.org about a 10% spike in registrations in Georgia in the last year. So I think we've seen over 800,000 Georgians come through our platform. That tells me there's a lot of organic energy and a lot of interest in what's happening in the state. So I do think we'll be able to get people excited all over again to come, and do it one more time. Just come vote one more time for this runoff election and have their voice heard.
After the runoff is done and all elections are counted, certified, hopefully before the end of the year, what will you do next to prepare for next election, get more people, young people motivated? What is the organization's next few years look like?
The big thing is there's no off year in a democracy building organization. The key to future high involvement and high participation is year-round engagement, letting people know what's happening in their state, what's happening at the city level. When there'll be elections, even though we won't have the presidential election coming up for a little bit here, there'll all sorts of really important local elections that will be happening all across the nation. So Vote.org will be working really hard to make sure everybody has the information to participate in those elections that really, quite frankly, have a bigger impact on people's day-to-day lives, sometimes than even the national picture. We will take a look and we'll evaluate our programs and how well they did, and we'll think about places and ways we can expand and grow. We will, look at how we can add to our team. Vote.org is now serving 1 in 5 American voters. So because of that, we really want to make sure that we can do that to the best of our capability. And then we will look to how we can scale before the presidential election. So I think part of it is also taking a big step back and saying thank you. Like, thank you to all of the people who worked with us this election cycle, to all the companies that partnered with us this cycle, and making sure people know that this work is really, really important and that we're really thankful for everybody's participation in it. Looking forward, we'll start mapping out who are the most effective messengers, where are the most effective places for us to be, how can we make sure we're reaching the largest number of people possible, and how do we keep everybody year-round engaged and excited about this great democracy that we all have and share.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. It was good to see you.